If you love processed meat, hot dogs, bologna, pastrami, salami, but you've been hesitant to eat it because you're afraid it might increase your risk of colon cancer, then you're going to love what I have to say in this video. I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician, and I also love processed meat, all of it, especially processed red meat. There's a new research study, a new article published in the journal Nutrients, which is a peer-reviewed journal. This is a very good article that looks at all of the research over the years that has demonized processed meat and has convinced millions of people around the world that eating processed meat will increase your risk of colon cancer. You're not going to believe what this study said. I love this study. Let's check it out. This study was published October 14th of 2021. And just to let you know right off the bat that not a single dollar of funding came from Big Meat or the Beef Checkoff or any other meat-related agency or organization. These researchers were just merely looking at all of the existing observational research about processed meat to see if it was actually good quality research. Did it actually show anything? Were there confounders that weren't accounted for? Were there biases that slipped into the research? And oh brother, was there. I've included a link down in the show notes below to the full text of this article so that you can print it out and read it for yourself. Don't believe me, but also you might want to print out a copy of this and give to your doctor or your dietitian or your nutritionist or your mama, whoever's been telling you that eating processed meat is gonna give you colon cancer. They need a copy of this study as well, because I'm sure that they are honest and earnest and they want to give people good information. They're just diluted temporarily by all of the observational epidemiological foolishness that's been going around the internet for decades. Even the World Health Organization has fallen prey to the terrible observational research that has been done on processed meat. So these researchers included all relevant studies that had anything to do with processed meat and colon cancer. And one of the first quotes that jumps out early on in this paper is, quote, our research into this indicates a high risk of selectively reported results. Then the next quote is, indicates a high risk of overlooking relevant literature. Now, to translate this into Dr. Berry speak, this is cherry picking, okay? They basically went and found all the studies that showed that processed meat is the devil, and they ignored other research studies that show that processed meat's fine. That's called cherry picking. The next quote is very interesting, and I think it's very telling. All but 2 of the eligible studies about processed meat, and there are scores of them, all but 2 fail to control for the age of the participants, the sex of the participants, the family history of colorectal cancer of the participants, the BMI of the participants. So if the participants were overweight, obese, or morbidly obese, that wasn't even accounted for in the study. Energy intake, how much food they were eating a day, alcohol, and last but not least, smoking. Yes, all of these researchers thought, well, we're not going to control for smoking in a study looking at colon cancer because smoking doesn't cause cancer. Yeah, I'm not joking. If read this paper, you're going to be blown away by the foolishness of previous epidemiological research about processed meat. They did not control for the age of the participant. They didn't control for smoking, for alcohol intake, which also definitely increases your risk of cancer. If you're overweight, if you're obese, if you're morbidly obese, your risk of all cancers are higher. They didn't control for that. Only 2 studies out of the 20, 30, 40, 50 studies controlled for these things. That makes all of these studies bunk. That's the Dr. Berry interpretation. It makes them bullshit. If you don't control for other things that we know increase your risk of cancer, then what kind of research are you doing? In the conclusion of their paper, these researchers say, we concluded that the overall certainty for the body of evidence examining the association between processed meat and cancer was very low across all individual cancer outcomes. So the evidence that the World Health Organization, the IREC, everybody, your mama, your nutritionist, those plant-based gurus on the internet, is all based on evidence that is very low quality. That's a quote. The final quote of this paper I'm going to read to you kind of brings it all home and lets you know just what quality of research all those people out there have been talking about. Our updated meta-analysis of colorectal cancer indicated that 75% of the eligible studies had a moderate to serious risk of missing data. They literally cherry-picked and left data out. And about half of the studies had issues with bias in the selection of the reported results. So that's the thing I've been telling you guys about for years. Anytime you're doing observational research that's not controlled, it's not blinded, if you have a preconceived notion, if you have a bias, if you believe that plant-based diet is the way all human beings should eat, then your bias is going to slip into the results of the research. 75% of the research about colorectal cancer and processed meat is at serious risk of missing data. They literally left data out that showed that processed meat was fine. 50% of the studies had issues with bias in the selection of the reported results. They couldn't help it. I think the researchers that did all this for the last 20 years, I think they're very honest, and I think they're very earnest, and I think they're very ethical and moral. Human beings cannot keep their bias out of research results unless you control the study and unless the study's blinded, unless there's an excellent peer review process looking for evidence of bias. So if you've got a researcher who's plant-based, but then the editor of the journal is also plant-based, there's no control there. There's no editorial control that says, hey, Bubba, I think your bias slipped into the results here. Why don't you recrunch these numbers? That doesn't happen if everybody in the research chain believes that plant-based is the way to go and believes that processed meat is gonna give you colorectal cancer. So the take-home message for this meta-analysis and the take-home message for this video is, until further notice, until real research in humans that's controlled comes out and is published and is peer-reviewed and stands the test of rigor, you are free to eat as much processed meat as you want. You can enjoy your pastrami, your salami, your bologna, your hot dogs, your bacon. None of this stuff has ever been shown in any meaningful research to increase your risk of colorectal cancer. It is a myth. It is a lie. If you'd like to use the Dr. Berry translation, it's bullshit. None of this stuff is true. You can enjoy your processed meat every single day of your life, and there is no research that in any way shows a direct causative link between that and colorectal cancer. Your colon is safe. Enjoy your hot dogs and bacon, and you're welcome. Processed meat with good ingredients is absolutely part of a proper human diet. If you have questions about what a proper human diet is, about your overall nutrition, about your medication, about medical issues, and you'd like to ask me one-on-one, then become a patron on patreon.com. For $1 a month, $3 a month, you get access to all of my posts. You get access to 2 or 3 additional live Q&As with me, and I'll answer your questions directly. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.